Yes, Madam President, we were here last week when I addressed the floor on this very issue that I want to talk about again because it is so absolutely critical to the world's security and our security, because violence is continuing to rage in Israel. We continue to hear the horrific and heartbreaking stories of Hamas's vicious attack on innocent Israeli civilians and families. And our own American citizens remain unaccounted for and are being held hostage by Hamas in the wake of their unjustifiable terrorist attack on the nation of Israel. In this chamber and in this country, our support for Israel and their right to defend themselves must be unwavering. We must stand with our ally and friend as they continue to withstand barbaric attacks from terrorist militant groups and threats from all directions. There is absolutely no question that now is the time for American leadership. Our response needs to be united, and our response needs to meet the urgency of a moment just like this. As the world power, the United States of America has both the responsibility and the wherewithal to support our allies, especially as they come under attack by nefarious adversaries. It becomes vitally important that our nation recognize this, that the American public hear the stories from those in Israel, and that we understand the brutal, inhumane, and devastating tactics that Hamas is deploying on the residents of the Jewish state. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak with two American families who have members who are being held hostage in Gaza by the terrorist organization Hamas. These stories are gut-wrenching. One, a 3-year-old child, the other, a married couple, and bring to light what is truly happening in Israel right now. Elderly families were ripped from their homes, children taken from their parents, family members executed in front of their loved ones. You know, I'm a mother myself and a grandmother, and I know everyone in this chamber and everybody listening has members of their own family and loved ones they care about so deeply. So can we really imagine what that feels like? This is the reality that the Israeli people are facing every day. These attacks need to be condemned and denounced in the strongest possible terms, and they have been. And it makes it all the more imperative that the United States provide the support it needs to stop and root out the evil Hamas. It is impossible to understate or to overstate even the outside role that Iran has played in these past 18 days since the initial attack. We know that Iran is financially supporting Hamas. We know in the strongest terms that Iran has helped reinforce Hamas's military strengths and capabilities and training. We know that Iran is backing Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon, who stands at the ready to open a second front of this war along the Israel-Lebanon border. We know that the Iranian-backed militias are responsible for the recent attacks on U.S. personnel stationed in the Middle East. And we know that Iran harbors deep resentment and hatred for our own United States and our ally Israel. Make no mistake, Iran is an evil empire, and they must be held accountable for these attacks as well. Sanctions need to be opposed and enforced on this regime and all others that are complicit in the illicit Iranian oil trade, which funds terror and aggression in the Middle East. The unmistakable anti-American hatred from Iran and its allies creates greater questions regarding our own national security. It highlights the importance of our investments in our own homeland security and national defense. We are at a very difficult juncture right now, and the security of America and the defense of our allies should remain our first priority. In addition to the terrorist attacks in Israel, there is a large-scale ground war in Europe perpetrated by Russia, the likes of which we have not seen since World War II. China continues to increase their posture and presence towards Taiwan. And our southern border is totally porous. It remains under siege. 2.48 million illegal immigrants came across our border in fiscal year 2023, a new record, a new record. Just last month, we set another new record, over 269,000 encounters at the southern border. And then, not to mention, but 169 of these encounters were people on our terror watch list, which is more than the last 6 fiscal years all tied together. So what does that tell you? We're not sheltered from terrorism. We can't think that what we see going on in the Middle East can't come here. We know it's been on our shores before, and there's no reason it can't come back unless we do something where we make intentional investments. So now is the time to make those investments into our national security across the board. Support for Israel, Ukraine, the Indo-Pacific, and our southern border is paramount and will serve to directly invest back into our own country and our own defense. America's place on the world stage requires a level of leadership and accountability that we must accept with authority. We are the superpower. While we must always prioritize the needs of our own country first and then the support of our allies. The good news is that when we are supporting in defense of our allies, we are also investing in the deterrence of, and also supporting our own security and deterrence. I am supportive of providing supplemental funding towards our defense capabilities, our southern border, Israel, Ukraine, and Indo-Pacific allies, because it's in the best interest of our country, our citizens, our neighbors. But I say, in the strongest terms, I mentioned southern border, but this must be front and center of any kind of supplemental that comes forward. The Senate will have its say on the supplemental. The President has put his proposal before us. I would venture to say that will drastically change. The buckets may not change so much, but certainly the areas of influence will. And we will have a bill that creates and reflects our own thoughts on what we think. We need to craft a response to the attacks on Israel and other national security emergencies of this time. I believe the Biden administration has been defined by its shakiness. The Senate needs to be defined by its strength and make certain that our country is ready and able to act. There is no doubt that the United States is currently being tested by our adversaries, but we must make certain that we don't respond with weakness. By working together, and I think we will and can, I'm confident in our ability to lead. We must meet this moment, as our nation has done in times of trials before. That is what will define this body and will move our country forward. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.